So obviously we're going to get into Eric Nicksick's appearance on Ariel Helwani talking about Sean's performance. He was brutal. And I think I know what he was doing, but I also think I'm going to start this video off by posing a question to everyone that should maybe shed some light on why Sean Strickland performed as poorly as he did in the manner that he did in the fight against Dricus last weekend, okay? So if you watch any of my other videos about Sean and we looked at his other performances, and what I said was his best performance ever, even better than the Izzy one, was the beginning of the Dricus fight, the first one, right? When he came out there, the first 2 rounds of the first Dricus fight, he looked incredible, okay? He looked incredible. And if you look at his walkout, he also looked incredible. He looked like a world champion who knew he was the best in the world because he had just taken it to Izzy the way that he did, right? Confidence. What is a more important, factor in athletic performance under the lights than confidence, right? And being able to tell yourself, I'm the best fighter in the world in this division is certainly something that is going to inspire confidence in any fighter. Okay. So can anybody think of anything that was a little bit different having to do with Sean's corner during this fight versus the last one? Anybody there that, might have changed the perspective of Sean Strickland when he's going into the cage? Anyone who might look like an Aztec warrior who may or may not have starched Sean unconscious when they fought under the lights, okay? Having Pereira in his corner is insanity. In hindsight, right? When you really think about it, that's one of the most insane decisions ever. If I was a sports psychologist, I'd be like you remember I talked about this with Volkanovski when he was doing the, when he was fighting against Topuria and he did the whole Volk is old thing and he's dressing himself up like an old man. And I'm like, don't do that, man. I know you're making a joke out of it, but don't put any energy towards that. You're the best in the world. You're coming off of a knockout loss, dude. Don't put that energy out like this guy might be old. Even if you're pretending like you're making a joke out of it, get that out of there, man. You're still the best 145 pounder in the world. Strickland, when he fought Alex at 185 pounds, the division he is fighting Dricus in, he got tricked and then starched. He got set up and starched. What is Alex Pereira going to do for him in the corner against Dricus? He doesn't speak English, except remind Sean of the time when Sean went out there thinking he was going to win and he ended up unconscious. Of course he's going to fight more. If he lets even a little bit of that into his brain, he's going to fight much more hesitant because the memory of that fight is right in his face. Do you know what I mean? It's you can only focus on so many things in that environment. You're in the cage, you got the audience, you got the crowd, you got your opponent, you got all the things that are spinning you up, you got all the things that you thought about doing in your training camp and all that stuff. You don't have that many things you can think about. Okay. As long as Pereira's not sitting in your corner, it's easy to ignore the fact that there was once a time that you fought against a really good 185 pounder who knocked you out. But if you stick him in your corner and in between every single round, you're looking right at his face. Oh, hey, what do you want to tell me, guy, that reminds me that I'm actually not the best striker at 185 pounds? Do you know what I mean? Am I in outer space on that or not? Right? That's our intro today, and we are now going to get into Eric Nicksick's appearance on Ariel Helwani. And I would just go ahead and I want to know what you guys think about that in the comments. I just saw this clip. I want to watch this actually and just imagine being in his corner and watching his energy, while
fighting. To me, it just seemed like he was sleepwalking. Yeah, it was tough, man. I was just trying to dig him out of it. Through the rounds, I didn't know if he was trying to collect data in the beginning or if it was just a slow start or what was going on. But as the rounds began to progress, I can just tell that it just didn't feel like he was in it the way most of the times that he is. So yeah, it was tough, man. It was tough 25 minutes to travel all the way out there. Man, let's not forget this is a title fight, and I take these title fights very seriously, and I don't know. I was just disappointed, man. I was disappointed with the whole entire outcome, the whole fight as a process. Just thought it was just kind of flat. I think he needs to evaluate what he wants to do in the sport. If it's just to make money, then that's great. Let us know. I want to coach world champions. So my motivations are different, so I think that.
Oh my God. I never even saw that. I never even saw that picture. That's a weird picture, man. That is a weird, weird picture. I don't know if you guys saw that the same way. I don't know. Whenever I watch a title fight, my anxiety, I don't see it the way that it is. I've realized that every time that I watch these fights a second time, I'm like, man, that looks completely different to me. And like that series right there, I mean, that was wild. I mean, I know that's after he got his nose broken, but that you can literally see in how he's moving that there is there's no sense of urgency there at all. You know, like he really did look like he was sleepwalking through that clip that we just watched. And I don't know. That's a weird clip to watch of Sean Strickland. All right. So this is my first time seeing this. Let's hear what Eric Nicksick said that Pereira was thinking here.
He's cool, man. Like he's intimidating as all hell. So, but he was cool. Like, leaned over a few times and he's looking at me like, what the hell's going on with Sean? I'm looking at him like, man, we need to get this out of him, So no, he was cool and a lot of great insight. Love having him there. A lot of people thought that like he flew all the way out there to corner Sean. That was not the case. He was already there. That's why we wanted him in the corner. He was already a resource for us and being in Australia. I think he was doing some seminars or something like that while he was out there. So, but him and Polino, man, great guys. Love having them. So it was an honor to have him in the corner.
And just like they loved having Pereira in their corner, I love having you watching my channel. And if you wanted to say thank you back to me, you could subscribe to the channel. Very, very helpful. And then you could like this video. Also very helpful. You guys are the best. Okay, so that's all. Yeah, so apparently, obviously, Alex was seeing the same thing as us. And but again, I mean, my thought on Alex, I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. But I have to pose that maybe looking at that guy's face in between rounds or before the fight or whatever, like you've fought that guy before. You know what I mean? Like all of us, like we're all a bunch of like monkeys, dude. I realize that when I say things like, we're all wired, blah, blah, they're like, you're not a pro UFC fighter. You don't, I'm like, okay, I understand that, guys. I understand that. But we're talking about levels of martial artists. I'm talking about high testosterone men is what I'm saying. And it's like at the end of the day, you got in a fight with someone and they beat you in the fight, okay? Like that shit is never like fully out of your brain. I have a friend, one of my best friends in the world, okay? Like literally one of my best friends, okay? One of my best friends. 20 fucking years ago, okay? 20 years ago, blacked out drunk on a beach when we were all partying at some river thing. He kissed my ex-girlfriend without realizing I was there and I slapped him, okay? Like just out of like sheer drunken anger because he didn't know I was there. They got caught and I rolled up and just smacked him. That still kind of hangs in there lingering just a little bit, like just a little bit. I love this fucking guy, dude. I love this dude. And the fact that 1 millisecond interaction happened 20 years ago still is like there just a little bit. I'd still kill 1 million people to protect this guy. I would go bail him out of jail in China. He would, like, in all honesty, more than anything, I feel weird about it. You know what I mean? I feel weird about it. But nonetheless, it's a thing that happened. Sean fought Alex Pereira in front of the entire world and Pereira starched him unconscious. I don't know. I mean, maybe Sean has the mind of like a samurai and that shit doesn't matter at all. But I just think there is a possibility that being reminded of a terrible outcome from a fight might have not had him perform at the highest possible level. And if he ended up being more tentative, maybe. You know what I mean? I don't know. Or maybe Drickus just overwhelmed him. I'm just saying, like, that's just a thought that I had. I have no idea if I'm right. You know what I mean? All right. So let's dive into this thing. Let's listen to Eric Nicksick talk. And I wanted to comment on some of the things that he said here.
No, I really didn't. I didn't. Like, just Sydney's good vibes, good juju, everything that went on out there last time with Israel. I thought it was like the place to be. I was very happy about that situation, getting back out there to fight. And getting the rematch with Drickus. I think there was things that we worked on all camp that were better than the last time around. We had a feel of what Drickus was going to implement. So I was very excited for it, man. I was so just for that type of performance, it was just very underwhelming.
There was some talk about his arm and whether that was a staph infection. A, what can you tell us about the arm? And B, do you think that affected him in any way?
It certainly doesn't help, but yeah, he had staph a couple weeks prior to us leaving. He was on antibiotics, but no, I mean, he looked great leading up to the last like week and a half of training. Traveled out there, his cardio felt fine, everything felt fine. So, of course, getting staph that at any point doesn't help the situation. It's not ideal, but that's to me not the reason why he felt flat.
So obviously in the aftermath, there's been a lot of criticism thrown his way, in large part because he's such a boisterous and kind of outspoken, outlandish personality. But he also, not just when talking about regular stuff, if you want to call it regular stuff, politics and all this stuff, he says things like he's going to fight to the death. And obviously that's not really what we saw on Saturday. Do you think that the criticism is warranted? Do you think that it has been fair?
Yeah, of course. I do. I do. I mean, we have to be real. Like it just was a very underwhelming performance in an opportunity to fight for a title.
Man, this is like harsh criticism coming from a coach. You know what I mean? I mean, like really, like this is like really, really harsh criticism coming from a coach. And I know, having watched him for years, Eric was the very first person to ever come on my show when I was, I don't know, maybe I had like a few thousand subscribers, and he was generous enough to come on and share his time with me. And I've always been incredibly grateful to him for that, because there was, no one of his status was coming on my show at that time at all. And he was generous with his time. So I've always been a huge fan of Eric Nicksick. And I've always tried to be very supportive of all the Extreme Couture guys. And so I've watched him very closely. Like, this is not a person who is like willy-nilly going to go out and say this. There's a reason he's doing it. And I do have a feeling, and this is not based on any information that I know for sure, but I think there's a possibility those two like really got into it after the fight, because there was a moment when they were during the fight where Eric was saying something to, like, he's like, you need to go, man. I think it either certainly in the championship rounds, I'm not sure exactly when, but, and Sean kind of like looked away and was like, all right. He gave him one of those kind of like, all right. And I remember being like, man, he must be in a bad headspace or something, And so I don't, I have no idea what happened on the way home. I have no idea whether they traveled back together. I have no idea. I have no idea. But I based on that interaction, I don't think it is unlikely that the two of them kind of got into it, or at the very least didn't have like a really strong connecting conversation afterwards. And if, Eric is all about motivating, Eric's not going to do something to be vindictive, right? Like, that's not something he's going to do. That I could say unequivocally. If I'm wrong, I mean, I would be shocked, right? So if he's doing this, he has a purpose of doing it. I would guess that he's doing it to try to motivate Sean, and also put a real serious ultimatum to him. Be like, look, dude, you're one of the best guys in the world, but like, you're going out there and you're sparring these guys. And, something else that I've said many times about Sean Strickland is I'm like, he likes fighting too much, like he loves it, which means he's not necessarily super motivated by victory as much as he is just by fighting, right? So he goes in there every day and he's like, let's go. And he likes throwing teeps. He likes being defensive. He doesn't like getting hit. So he likes to, he likes punching, but not getting hit. And he wants to do 1,000 rounds. He doesn't want to exert himself too long because he wants to be able to do 1,000,000 rounds. And it's just like, you're going to fight how you practice to a certain extent. And, I don't know, man. He gets in there and like, again, I think that Eric is doing this trying to like, this is actually him trying to coach Sean in the way that he thinks that he needs to be coached. But it doesn't stop here. It gets, continues.
There's people in this sport that never even realize that potential to ever even be an opportunity to fight for a championship. That should be enough to get you motivated, to get you off the couch. So, it just to me was, we didn't perform. you know, so it's on all of us. It's on me as a coaching staff. It's on Sean and you know, I think he needs to evaluate what he wants to do in the sport. If it's just to make money, then that's great. Let us know. You know, I want to coach world champions. So my motivations are different, you know, so I think that, you know, just to kind of show up and do that and, you know, not really back it up, just to me was just kind of uninspiring.
What is going through your mind as you're watching?
Man, that is, I mean, that I don't even know. I don't know what to say about that, man. That's like, I mean, he's obvious, he's right, of course. But that, I don't know. I mean, what catches me is like Sean, I've always heard, is in the gym. He's a leader in the gym. He trains more than anybody else. And like, I mean, this performance must have really rubbed Eric wrong, you know, like really rubbed him wrong. And I understand why. It's like, as a coach, right? Like as a coach, you're trying to like, you want to have a positive impact on the fight. But if your fighter is just straight up directly ignoring everything that you say, like acknowledging it, you know, like just the most basic stuff, right? Which is you cannot win if you do not throw at least this many strikes per round. And in the first round, you throw a third of that. And then it's like, hey, dude, okay, look, like, okay, maybe you're getting your time or whatever. And as the fight goes on, you're like, there's just like, they won't listen. There's no sense of urgency and whatever. I mean, like, it's got to be incredibly frustrating because you're like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? Like that must have been definitely part of how Eric felt. Is what am I doing here? What am I doing? I mean, this is a championship fight for me too, you know? Like that's the other thing that I think people don't really think about in some cases is like the fighter is in there, but his whole team is in there too. Like especially his head coach. You know the hours that a head coach puts in on a fighter that has gotten all the way to a championship fight? You know, you have any idea the amount of effort that Eric Nicksick has put into Sean Strickland, and his legacy's on the line also. And so to have a fighter go out and just directly ignore every single thing that he's saying, and it's not like he went out and he got knocked out. It's not like we did 25 minutes of the exact opposite of what Eric is asking him to do and is hoping that he will do, that they've game planned together on. He's just not doing any of it. And I would imagine Eric probably takes it personal, to be honest, because it's not like it's like just a bad performance, because at the same time, like with Sean, we already know if he lets his hands go, if he lets his feet go, if he has a lot of output, he has a high probability of winning every single fight. Like it's all he has to do is just pull the trigger and just go, right? But if a guy's trying to do something and making mistakes, that's different than just straight up not trying to do. Do you know what I mean? Like not throwing punches is different than, you know, we worked on, you know, catching circling and catching the outside position and doing this, where you're like starting it, but then, you know, you're not executing the way that we had planned. Like that's different than just not throwing strikes. You know what I mean?
Watching this unfold, like you say, you travel all the way across the world. You're with the guy, second shot to try to, you know, beat this guy, to win back the belt. And you could see you could hear your frustration building. They kept going back to you in the corner, and you're being brutally honest. You're telling him it's too predictable. You got to go. You got to get a finish. Every time it was building up. But as you're going back to the corner for those 5 minutes and you're watching this, what's going on inside? What are you thinking?
Just he's kind of checked out. That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, you know, you're grasping at straws at that point. You're just trying to get him to do something. And like, you know, like my dad used to always say in football, is like, you got to get something, get the band playing, right? Get the crowd and get motivated, get the momentum on your side again, you know? So I'm asking for anything. You know, the jab and the teep aren't going to win the fight. You know, it's like if you have a predictable offense and you run this slow paced offense in football and you get down by 30, you don't have the ability to come back and win those games, right? Like you just don't have the ability to come back and win those types of games. So you have to take risks. You have to make something creative happen, you know, and just jabbing and teeping your way to a comeback win wasn't there. So it's like, dude, find a same side head kick, throw some knees up the middle, so throw something different that's not predictable to what Dricus has seen for the last 9 rounds.
Now, one more thing, I'll comment on that, and then we'll move over to the Pereira story. Was that if you look, I mean, this is not news to anybody, but when you look at Sean's record and the outcomes here, it's like, to Eric's point, I think he might actually say it in a minute or two, but he says, with Sean, we do not have that single shot knockout ability. Like that's not going to be how we win the fight. Is like, okay, yeah, he's down, but then bang, knockout. Okay, there are lots of fighters that have that. Sean ain't one of them. You know what I mean? I mean, that's just one of those things. Now, Sean can knock guys out, but it's going to be with volume, accuracy. He's going to get them hurt, and then he's going to have to get on them, right? But if you look at this, I mean, just to kind of further demonstrate how important it is for Sean to get off on guys. Like, he has 4 split decisions in his last 9 fights. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 4 of his last 9. Now, he lost to Dricus in this one, so he actually had split decisions in 4 of 8. He lost 2 of them and he won 2 of them. Like, that's wild. I mean, split decisions are not that common. And for a single person, to be on, to have, half his fights end in split decisions, it's got to be incredibly frustrating for his team because, again, it's like there is something you need him to do to have a chance at victory, which is he needs to get off. And if he's not getting off, then you already know he's not going to win this fight. He's not going to win. So it has to be incredibly, incredibly challenging for Eric.